I thought about it, and it's like usually there's a couple of frames that I always come back to. They just, just want to have a good time no matter what. And so this is my top 5, as I call them, fun frames in Warframe. Let's kick it off with Valkyr and Valkyr Prime. To get the original Valkyr, you need to go fight Vid on Jupiter. Valkyr is the Berserker Warframe, mainly because of her second and fourth ability. Her second ability, Warcry, increases your attack speed of any melee weapon you're holding. Doesn't matter if it's a super slow weapon like the Galatine or something super fast like dual swords, for example. Her fourth ability, like Hysteria, is also what I consider an exalted ability or an exalted weapon. Just like you got Excalibur's Exalted Blade, or you have Mesa's Peacemakers and Ivara's Artemis Bow. Essentially the same thing. At the time of this video, I'm actually recording on PS4, so I still have the old system where you build a good melee weapon, or you build a good pistol, and all that stuff for weapons. So I'm using my Galatine on here to increase the damage output of my Hysteria. But if you're on PC, you already have the new update where you actually can modify that part of the weapon, so you can modify the exalted weapon and your melee weapon. The reason why I like playing Valkyr is because most of the time I don't even put on a primary or secondary. I just put on my favorite melee weapon, or a melee weapon that I'm really enjoying at that moment, and just go and kill, do a couple of missions. It's just a load of fun, just not really have to worry. And the thing is, whenever you're low on health, all you have to do is just pop Hysteria, because whenever you're in Hysteria, you're invulnerable to everything essentially, and you get health regen and lifesteal whenever you're in it. You just have to make sure whenever you get out of it, you're not around enemies, because if they're in your radius, the damage is returned to you. Valkyr is the tankiest, if not one of the tankiest Warframes there are, because of the armor. Next we have my starter frame, which is Volt. Now you can obtain the parts for Volts from the dojo in the Tenno lab, and Volt Prime at this time is Volted. Volt Prime is Volted. So why do I like playing Volt? Essentially some of the same reasons as Valkyr, because of his second ability. His second ability is essentially like a speed boost, but unlike Valkyr's, his is a speed boost to movement speed, reload speed, and melee speed. So it's a better version of Warcry essentially, but because Volt is in a frame that deals with electricity, it makes sense. I like using Volts if I'm doing just running through missions, or for example killing a boss or a capture mission or something like that, or if I just want to run around the plains of Eidolon and all that. I usually pick Volt because I have two separate builds. I have a build for everyday damage or Eidolon fighting because of the polarity, and then I also have a build for just straight speed. I try to put as much sprint speed on it to raise essentially so I can raise my base speed, so that way when I use my speed boost it'll be faster. Running around like a maniac, and I usually like to use pole arms with Volt. It's just hilarious, and I just think it's one of the greatest things in the world. And usually it's just if you keep moving around enough, you don't have to worry about people hitting you, because you do have low armor. So next we have Zephyr Prime. Both are adequate. To get the parts for the regular Zephyr, you would need to go to the Tenno lab and also research it, just like Volt. Now, Zephyr was actually one that surprised me, because I recently had acquired Zephyr Prime because I didn't feel like researching it, because my dojo, I'm actually the only one that actually put stuff into it, because it's not a large one, it's just a personal one, because I wanted those weapons. I've enjoyed playing Zephyr Prime so much, mainly because of two abilities. I try to mainly only use two abilities, just so I don't irritate or piss off my teammates whenever I was leveling them. So the two abilities that I've mainly used would be Turbulence and Tailwind. Now the reason Turbulence is kind of an easy one, because Turbulence, it simulates the same as Rhino's Iron Skin, kinda. Tailwind is just a really good mobility. And I just love, like, I usually pick Zephyr whenever I'm doing the plane. Using Tailwind can actually make you go across the entire map. All you have to do is make sure you have the Generic focus tool, so you can have Energize and Dash, or just have a bunch of energy pizzas. The mobility mainly, just dashing everywhere, and Zephyr already has like an ability where she falls. Zephyr already falls lighter than most characters, so dashing around and then just slowly floating around. Tailwind also has a really neat feature because Zephyr used to have two separate abilities where she had her dive bomb and the normal Tailwind, but now depending on how you angle it, if you're up in the air and you look down, you get your dive bomb, but if you look anywhere else, you'll just get your Tailwind. And that is in itself, for me, it's just like mobility and just floating around. It's been fun. I do use her fourth ability sometimes. Like, I mainly use it for reviving because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to piss off my teammates well. But just like the mobility, and I love using, like, one of my favorite weapon setup to use is my Lex Prime and my Glaive. Fortunately, I don't have Glaive Prime. If I did, that'd be the greatest thing ever. But like, this is like one of my favorite setups because you have that extra airtime. So it's just like, with Lex Prime and how hard it hits, dude, it makes everything easy. But there are times where I do use the ability Air Burst just to like knock enemies away. I mean, you can fly through the air. Who doesn't want to do that? Next on the list is a Warframe that literally took me forever to get. I am talking about Ivara. You can get the parts for Ivara by doing each difficulty of spy mission, so easy, medium, and hard. So Ivara is your huntress. She's the one that stalks from the shadow with her Artemis bow, and that in itself is why I love playing Ivara, because I am a major fan of archery. I even made my own bow when I was younger. When I had found out how to get this Warframe, it literally took me, I want to say, 4 months. The thing that pissed me off when I was trying to get the parts for Ivara, I looked at my relics and I was just like, oh, I'll just get Saren Prime. I got Saren Prime and Nakana Prime within an hour, and I've been trying to get Ivara parts for months. It's worth it for me because in the end, I had so much fun. You can play Ivara a lot of ways. People actually used to use her originally for focus farming because you can just be invisible the entire time and you get that stealth bonus multiplier and all that. I just like all the utilities. Now, the only ability that I don't really use as much is her second ability, which is the one that lets you could take control of the arrow. I mean, it's neat, don't get me wrong, but it's just like Valkyrie that I mentioned earlier. I love her Artemis bow, and the fact is that you charging it doesn't actually make it do more damage. It just orients the direction of it. Sometimes I actually just want to just be invisible and just shoot my bow, because my favorite bow is Paris Prime, but the Dread is a very good second. It's nice to just be invisible and not have to worry about things. And let's say that you don't want to actually use your prowl and stay invisible. You can just, you know, use your cloak arrow and just shoot it somewhere and then shoot out of it. And the cool thing about when you're invisible, like with her prowl, standing next to enemies for a little bit actually gets additional loot. And last but not least is probably one of my favorite frames, like, and that is Anaro. To get this frame, you buy the quest line for him from Barkatir on Friday, whichever relay. And why Anaro? Because he doesn't die. Now, here's the thing. The build that I'm using is essentially the build from a YouTuber called MC Gaming. My build's not done. The only thing that's different from my build and his build is he uses Prime Vigor. I just have regular Vigor. But if you look, I have 6,000 health. 6,000 health. And then I have the augment Nanite Swarm. Now Nanite Swarm essentially nullifies like any status effect. So slash proc, toxin, all that stuff. It takes from your Nanite Swarm first, so your armor, your weird little sand armor you have around it, and then it'll like, after that's gone, then you'll get status. Like, you'll still get hit and hurt unless that's your health, but you just don't have to worry about slash procs and all that stuff, which is great. And if you start losing health, one of his abilities is whenever you get a finisher kill, you gain, I think it's like 20% of your health or something like that. I can't really remember. Making this setup and putting this on, I think I've only actually like went down once, and that was the last level of the sorties, and I don't know what happened. I just took so much damage and I was just down. But other than that, like, this setup, this is probably the only one that's close to a end-game setup for me, because I have Hunter Adrenaline and I don't have to worry about energy because I have no shields. All the damage that I'm going to take is going to be straight from my health. So I'm just going to get that energy back, which means that I can always use my Desecrate, always go for finishers. And it's just like, I can enjoy any weapon with Inaros. And even if you do die, you still have like your little sarcophagus form, where you just look at an enemy and you drain the health from them. Now, here are some honorable mentions that didn't really make the list, but they're still fun to play.
But I wasn't grown up in mind. But I wasn't grown up in mind. But I wasn't grown up in mind. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh. Oh, oh, but I wasn't